And then another comment that I see often is these guys have been at it since 2010 or 2011 or something like that, and they've never delivered a vehicle. They don't intend to deliver a vehicle, or they can't deliver a vehicle. It's never going to happen. And that statement is kind of partially true, which makes it more, the truths that are like partially true are the ones that are a little bit more insidious. And the reason that is partially true is because, yes, the founders are the same. It's Steve Anthony and Chris Fambro. And yes, the vehicle looks essentially the same. The aerodynamic Morelli shape and the shape of the vehicle remains the same, and the name of the company, Aptera, remains the same. However, that company is legally a separate entity, and if you want to know the history of that company, I made a video about a year ago about that. So the Cliff Notes version of that story is that Steve Fambro and Chris Anthony started a company called Accelerated Composites back in 2006, and they were planning to manufacture and deliver the Aptera vehicle as a gas vehicle initially, and then later on as an electric or hybrid vehicle. But what happened is they got some outside investors through Idea Lab, and Google was an initial investor. Those investors installed a board, and the board decided that it would be good to have someone with automotive experience leading the company. So a guy named Paul Wilbur, who was a Detroit executive, was installed as the CEO of the company. And he and Steve and Chris initially thought, oh, this is a good idea. We don't have any experience in delivering an automotive vehicle and manufacturing. And they were quite young at that time as well. And they thought it would be helpful to have a executive with some experience in that. But when he took over, there were several decisions that were made that Chris and Steve did not agree with. Basically, instead of delivering vehicles, they tried to ramp production to really high production by getting the ATVM loan. When that did not happen, because the ATVM loan required 4 wheels, they spent a ton of money lobbying to change that feature of the ATVM loan, and then also spent money trying to design a 4-wheel vehicle. So they spent a lot of money on lobbying and a lot of money on developing a 4-wheel vehicle instead of moving forward the production of the original 3-wheeled Aptera. And this is something that Steve and Chris did not agree with. They tried to take back control of the company, but essentially they could not, because the large investors had installed a board that basically controlled the company, and Steve and Chris were ousted from their company basically in around 2008. And then that company ran from 2008 to 2011, and eventually had to liquidate. And they refunded all their deposit holders, and I was one of their deposit holders back then. I wanted the vehicle back in 2008, 2009. I'd heard about them, and I was always interested in a very efficient vehicle. And so I got my money back, and so did everyone else who reserved that vehicle. If you guys reserved the original vehicle, let us know in the comments below whether or not you got your deposit back. I'm told everyone did, and I know I got mine back. And so the company liquidated, but that was a company that was run for the last 3 years when it was basically became defunct by Paul Wilbur, who was the outside automotive executive hired by the board that was installed by large investors. Now, I think that is what soured Chris and Steve on losing control of the company. And so eventually when they liquidated, they sold their intellectual property to a Chinese company named Johnway. And then at some point, I think it was possible for Steve and Chris to buy back the intellectual property, and they did, because they always believed in this product. And that is my impression after talking to them and talking to the company, is that they really believe in this product, and they really want to make it, and they really want to deliver it. And so that's why they're spending so much of their resources restarting this company. So they restarted the company. They kept the name because they liked the name. And so they restarted the company back in late 2019. But really, as far as the public is concerned, they started the company in late 2020. You'll look on their YouTube channel, and their launch video was in December of 2020. And that's when they announced that they're starting to take pre-orders for the vehicle. I put in my pre-order like a few days afterward, because I felt sad about them not delivering a vehicle 10 years ago. So I was a little gun shy about putting another deposit down and getting my hopes up. So I waited a few days, but then I decided, no, I'm gonna do it. I really still want a vehicle like the Aptera. And so I put in my deposit in December of 2020, a few days after they announced pre-orders. They were taking pre-orders. So it's been almost 3 years that they've been doing this. And people are like, well, that's a long time. You know, they've missed their goals for delivery. You know, at first it was, oh, we're delivering vehicles in late 2021, and then 2022, and then maybe 2023. And anyone that's followed automotive startups knows no one has ever stayed on their timeline. That just doesn't happen. Lucid, Rivian, Canoo, Fisker's been the closest to delivering on their timeline. They still missed it by probably almost a year, but that's pretty good. And then, the Cybertruck, that's made by a company that is one of the most highly capitalized companies in the world in terms of an automotive company. They have lots of resources. They still miss their goal of delivery. They were supposed to have delivered the Cybertruck a year or two ago. And it does look like they are going to deliver the vehicle starting this month later. And just for disclosure, I do have a reservation down on a Cybertruck as well. And I may or may not go through with that reservation. I have to kind of see how the first initial rollouts go.
Okay, I think we lost some of the video here because it wasn't recording, but basically I was ranting about financial efficiency.
Is more than 10 times what Aptera has spent. Aptera has raised about $100 million. Lucid and Rivian both raised and spent over $1 billion before they produced their first vehicle. So in terms of financial efficiency, there's absolutely no comparison. So the bottom line is no, they have not been trying to produce this vehicle for over a decade. They tried to produce this vehicle from about 2006 to 2011. And if you really want to think about it, it's probably from like 2006 to 2009, because the rest of the time they spent their time trying to lobby and make a four-wheeled vehicle instead. And then from about 2009 to 2020, there was no Aptera. There was nothing happening. The intellectual property was held by a Chinese company and no development was happening. And then it got restarted in late 2019. They put out their pre-order status in 2020, and they've been trying to produce this vehicle in earnest and develop the vehicle for 3 years, which, if you think about it, is a very rapid timeline. They've basically re-engineered the vehicle. Nothing is similar about the vehicle other than the shape. The drivetrain is different, suspension is different, and they've tweaked the shape and the body material. So they've completely engineered essentially a new vehicle that has the same shape in 3 years, and it looks like their engineering and their design is basically finalized at this point. And at this point, you just need to get to production. And they're going to make their production intent vehicles hopefully in the next few months. And they are hoping to deliver sometime in 2024, mid to late 2024. And again, I personally would not be surprised if they missed that deadline. Things always seem closer than they are. And I think whenever company executives talk, they have to show that they're confident, and they always give optimistic timelines. So, tell me in the comments below when you think actual delivery is going to happen. I think best case scenario, it'll be late 2024. That's because they have to make these production intent vehicles, and then they also have to test them, crash test them, validate them. I mean, that's going to take months. I think 6, 9, maybe even a year. It takes a long time to validate these things. That's just my guess, as being a guy that has never produced a vehicle before and has never run a company before. So your guess is as good as mine. They think they can get that done in 6 months, and I hope they're right, because we all want the vehicle sooner rather than later. But I personally just would not be surprised if it takes longer. So I think best case scenario, late 2024, and more realistically, probably early, maybe even mid 2025. So that's what I'm going with. Put down your predictions in the comments below, guys. All right, thanks for watching. Thanks for coming on the run with me. A couple of people asked what I use to record this. They think I'm using 2 cameras, and I am, but it's one device. I have a Galaxy S23 Ultra. They have a thing called Director's View that uses both the front and the rear facing camera simultaneously and records this picture-in-picture thing, which is pretty cool. I've never used this feature before because I think it's designed for people that are vlogging, and I guess in some way this is sort of a vlog. All right, okay, well, leave me your comments below about when you think the timeline's gonna be, and have a great day, everyone.